Here are a few tips if you want to quit your 9 to 5 and generate a full-time income with sports cards. So here we go. So tip number one is you need to be passionate about sports and the hobby. As far as the hobby is concerned, you need to have your finger on the pulse of the hobby. You need to know who sells, who doesn't sell. And the thing you need to understand is that a lot of players, they might not be the greatest players in the world, but their cards might sell. So for example, Melo Ball, yeah, he's been on a few All-Star teams, but he's not won league MVP a few times, like an Embiid or like an Anthony or like an Embiid or like Nikola Jokic, play like that. Hasn't won any league MVPs, but his cards sell really well. He's a good player, but he's not a great player. He's not like Ant-Man. So there's a lot of players that, like Johnny Manziel, he sells. Didn't do much in the NFL, but his cards sell. So you need to know who sells, who doesn't sell, but you need to have your finger on the pulse. You need to know what's going on in the hobby. So you got to be passionate about the hobby, about collecting, and about sports in general. You just have to be. If this is not something you're passionate about, just get out of it and do something else. You could go sell penny stocks or do whatever. So you got to be passionate about the hobby and about sports. So it's tip number one, extremely important. You got to understand the market. You got to know the market. So tip number two, you need a way to source product. You got to have a way to source product. Where are you going to get your product from? Where are you going to get your supplies from? Where are you going to get that from? Are you going to go to card shows and raid the dollar bins? That's a great strategy. Are you going to buy off of eBay? Are you going to buy off of ComC? Do you have friends in the local area that you can buy product from? You got to be able to source product. If you don't have product, you have nothing to sell. And how are you going to make a profit? So you got to be able to source product. This is extremely important. If you want to go full time and make good money, that's going to be the challenge. And of course, selling your cards and making a profit is going to be that. There's challenges in that as well. So you have to know, you got to be able to source product. I think a great way is to go to card shows. You can buy low end, rated dollar boxes, buy low end, sell, make a profit. Maybe it's mid end, maybe you're into high end. You buy high end and then you want to flip them. So you got to be able to source product. I think the best way is card shows, but you can buy off of eBay. There's ComC. Maybe you have some friends in the local area, like I was saying. So you got to be able to source product, and you got to keep that. You have to have an ongoing supply of product coming into your business, so then you can sell that product and make a profit. So you got to be able to source product and get really good at that. Because if you don't do that, then it's not going to matter. You're not going to have anything to sell, obviously. So that's the second tip. Tip number three, you got to know your effing numbers. You got to know your numbers. It's just that simple. I don't care what business you're in. You got to know your numbers. You got to understand what are your margins. You got to know your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know where you're going. And the thing is, so you understand, know your numbers, and then it's good to set goals, short-term goals, long-term goals, and then try to hit those goals. But you got to know your numbers. You got to know how much you generate per month, how much you generate approximately, what you gross every year. And then you got to understand, okay, what's going out on my business account? What are my expenses? One of your big expenses, obviously, is going to be product, is sourcing product. A lot of your expenses are going to go towards that, or a big chunk of your expenses are going to go towards just sourcing product. You got to buy supplies. If you're setting up the shows, obviously, you're going to have to pay for the table. So there's a lot of expenses involved, obviously. And say you want to go out and get an LLC, that's going to cost a lot of money. It's not going to cost much. You can get an LLC for like $100, but it's a business expense. It's not an ongoing one, but it's an expense. So you got to know your numbers. You got to know your numbers. What are your margins? So those are three good solid tips. Tip number one, you got to be passionate about the hobby and about sports. That's tip number one. Tip number two, you got to be able to supply. You got to have an ongoing supply of product coming into your business so you can sell that product and make a profit. So that's tip number two. You got to be able to, how do you source your products? And then tip number three is you got to know your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, then it's not going to work for you. You got to know, what are your margins? How much money are you making? How much are you grossing per month? What are you spending? You gotta know the numbers. So those are three solid tips right there. This is my first video. In my second video, I'll give you another 3 solid tips. So this is Ty, the sports card guy. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts about this video, and I will talk to you later.